My name's Adele Onyango, and welcome to another episode of Legally Clueless. No, seriously, I have no clue what I'm doing, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. Hey you, welcome to episode 261 of Legally Clueless. Thank you so much for rocking with the fam. And of course, if you are an OG member, nothing but love for you. If you're new, audio episodes like this go out every single Monday. Head over to our website so you can watch our video series, our tour series, and so much more. And speaking of tours, we are a couple of days away from starting our East Africa tour. So if you are in Uganda, Rwanda, and Ethiopia, you may want to drop us a DM on our Instagram page, and let's see, when we're there we could link up with you. Why not? Even if it's just to say hi. And if you want to figure out where we are on the internet, because I'm telling you to DM us, our favorite corner is Instagram, and you can find a link to our Instagram page in the show notes. Another thing that I want to share before we jump into the story in this episode, which is quite an inspiring one, and it's going to give you a perspective that we don't often hear about. But before we get there, it is Women's Month, and we're just coming out of International Women's Day. And this month we teamed up with Mirazi. So I was trying to figure out together with the team, like what can we do for International Women's Day that is impactful, that actually gives you something tangible. It is not just, yay, happy International Women's Day, but there's so many things that women need that they don't have access to. And I've said it on the podcast quite a few times, getting to a point of deeper understanding of my health, physical health, has been so instrumental. But I also know that it's kind of a privilege if you think of access financially to some of these services, to a good gyna, to a good GP. It costs money. And so I reached out to our friends at Mirazi. In case you don't know, they're right here in Kenya. They are a healthcare provider. They have so much under one roof, like different doctors across 15 different specialities. I asked them, listen, I know you have gynas. I know you offer pap smears. I know you do breast and pelvic ultrasounds. Could you subsidize these things for the entire month of March? Guess what? They agreed. Yes, they have super subsidized a lot of their costs. If you go to our Instagram page, you can find all the details there. And still on our Instagram, we want to sponsor 2 women's consultations with a gynecologist. So if you've always wanted to see a gyna, I know it's so pricey, but it's so necessary. You know what I mean? So we as Legally Clueless Africa want to sponsor that for you. So head over to our Instagram page for more details. It's literally just you dropping a comment, and we will pick the women randomly. It's our way of just trying to help. Okay, I think we need to jump into the story. I'm trying to skim over my notes to see if I've left anything out. No, I don't think I have. So today's storyteller is Jay, and why I love this story is because a lot of times we feel like issues around body image, body positivity, body shaming are only something that women navigate. And this is because a lot of the stories that come out are women sharing about how they're navigating these things. We don't really hear a lot from men, and specifically African men. And so I'm very honored to have Jay on the podcast, who talks about being plus sized, the random places he has faced body shaming, how he's navigated it. I love when he speaks about banter, because I see us normalizing banter, but banter can be very harsh, very mean, and actually can be bullying. But anyway, listen to his story. Let's chat about it a little later. 100 African stories on Legally Clueless. Stories from Africa.
My name is J John Kamau. I'm 27 years old. I'm a podcaster, a blogger, a photographer, a videographer, a social media manager, and an all-round creative. I'm one of those guys who I'd consider myself an outgoing person, an introverted outgoing person. I try my best to interact with people and have candid conversations. I come from a couple of places, but I think where my childhood is concerned, I was born in Nyeri. My mom moved us around a couple of times. Found myself in Kiambu. when I was a teenager. Moved a little bit more, but still in Kiambu, within Kiambu County. So currently I'm living by myself in my house, in my home in Limuru. But in a nutshell, I think if you ask me where I'm from Nyeri. A better part of my childhood growing up, my mom is an English teacher, high school English teacher. She has nurtured a better part of my creativity comes from her. A better part of my love for the language, for the English language comes from her. So yeah, she nurtured me from a pretty young age to be expressive, to be able to communicate coherently, to be able to pass my message out correctly. She was very big on grammar and pronunciation. But I think tying it to why I'm here today, I think growing up, I was a chubby child. That's the best word I can use. I was more on the heavier side. So growing up, I noticed that I was very different from my friends, from my childhood friends. So I think my mom noticed that it would be a problem for me because earlier on in my childhood, I was not outgoing at all. I tried my best to keep to myself. I was very introverted starting out when I was a child. So my mom gave me a bunch of novels. I still remember she gave me a bunch of novels and told me that for me to be able to communicate with children or to communicate with my friends, I needed to read those novels. And I found myself being pacified in a sense by the novels. So I didn't really notice that I was a big child really until maybe I was around 10. But before that, my friends treated me with the dignity of somebody who looks normal, for lack of a better way to phrase that. So I only started noticing that I was kind of different when I was around 10. So my childhood was pretty normal. I played a lot. I joked a lot. I ran a lot. I got hurt a lot. When I was around 10, I think I started getting bullied in a sense. But my bullying was not too harsh because at the same time I was a big kid. It was more of name calling. I have had nicknames my whole life. I've been called Fatty. I've been called Biggie. I've been called so many names that would insinuate to body shaming. But it never really sat on me until I was a teenager. And the banter that's the way I felt like it was. The body shaming, I felt like it was banter to start with. The banter now progressed to a point where I could recognize and articulate that it was actual body shaming. So when I was around 13, 14, I started realizing that it hurt more when somebody will call me fat or somebody will call me a name that would insinuate to my size. So that's when I got to a point where I realized that my body image, my relationship to my body image had broken. Where I'm at right now, at least I feel like I have healed from it. But where I was then, I hated my body. I hated how I looked. I felt ashamed. I felt the need to keep to myself. But right now where I am at, I think I would say that I am in a better place right now. And I'm in a place where I'm able to speak about it. I'm in a place where I'm able to maybe advise, counsel, or maybe give a word of encouragement to somebody who's listening. That it gets better. It gets better. Eventually it gets better. But you'll have to go through a lot of introspection so that you can actually accept yourself for who you are. In high school, I think that's when I really went through a lot of body shaming. So I have instances, very memorable instances where I realized that I was going through body shaming. But as I said, it takes a lot of introspection to realize what you are going through. Because when you're a teenager or you're in high school, you're not really thinking too much about it. Only when you later on, it's when it hits you that, that was body shaming. But my memorable instances of body shaming, I remember this one time we had a school function, funkies, as we call them in Africa, in Kenya. I remember we had this function in my school. I went to school in Chinga Boys High School. That's in Obaya. And I remember this is around 10 years. Yeah, around 10 years ago. Then I still remember it. I remember it was an English contest or a maths contest. and we had this girls' school that was coming over. Anybody who's been through high school in Kenya will tell you that functions are the biggest deal of the term. So I remember I was very excited. I was raring to go, and I felt like it will be one of those functions that we will be talking about for days to come, as is the norm with these functions, right? So in one of my interactions with this girl, I remember it was a very pleasant interaction. Nothing standard about it would insinuate to body shaming, apart from what happened next. So I remember when it came to time for them to leave, I rushed to their school bus, and I was like, I can't remember her name really, but I was like, can you give me your number and I can hit you up, I can call you over holidays. I was trying to pursue something more. So, and I remember her categorically saying no. As I'm saying this right now, then I didn't think it was too big a deal, right? Until slightly like 5 minutes later, literally, bro, somebody else, another guy, went over to ask for her number, and she gave it to him without hesitation. And I remember I kept wondering what it was that I said wrong. I kept wondering what it is that I did wrong. But the interaction with the girl felt really very, very sorry, very pleasant from my end. So that is the first, and I remember attributing it later to the way I looked. And I was like, yeah, it had to be because I was fat, or it had to be because I looked some type of way. I couldn't attribute it to anything else. I remember also another memorable instant. My friends kept bantering me. My teachers kept bantering me and calling me all types of names. And you see, the problem with some of these things, from their perspective, it's harmless. It doesn't do anything. It's just, we're just bantering you. That all. And I think one of the best attributes of being body shamed, it's caused me to have a very thick skin. So somebody will say something to me and it won't really hit home, right? I remember being bantered by my teachers, my classmates, being called all sorts of names, from Fatso to Fatty to Biggie and very other vulgar names that I wouldn't go into right now. But those are my memorable instances of being body shamed in high school. Progressively in campus, I don't think I had any interaction that made me feel some type of way. I think by then I had gotten to a point where I knew who I was, so nothing anybody would say would really hurt me or get to me. But it's notwithstanding that it still happens. Everyday interactions with people, you'll find people looking at you some type of way. You'll find people whispering among themselves. You'll find yourself in a matatu and somebody will not want to sit next to you. And it's not because you are sat on two seats, it's just because they realize that, you look different. And I feel like I'm assuming that I will be squeezed in a matatu. So body shaming in my body weight is part of who I am. And I've learned to live with it. I've learned to adapt to it. When you look the way I look, when you are the size that I am, it's very hard for you to distinguish the two. Like, body shaming is on one end and you are on the other. They go hand in hand because your weight, your size is who you are, right? So from a very young age, also in my childhood, I remember I have been bantered and been body shamed by my parents. No, weirdly enough, or better enough, or let's just say better enough, my parents never shamed me. I don't have an instance in my mind where I remember my mom telling me something that was phrased as body shaming. But for my siblings, on the other hand, I was body shamed by my siblings. I remember being told that I'm eating too much, or being told that I would break the bed, or being told that when we are on family trips, I'll be told something like, which is kind of funny when you think about it. I'll be told that we will be taking a turn on the road, and one of my siblings will be like, yo, just sit on the other end of the car so that the car does not flip. So the very simple interactions, very simple things that people say that do not really hit you or do not really come off as body shaming, right? But when you think about it, you're like, it was actually body shaming. It was actually somebody trying to insinuate at or hint at how I look. So yeah, from my parents, no. From my siblings, sure. From my extended family, my uncles, my aunties, my cousins, sure. From my friends, my childhood friends, maybe not so much, but yeah, I think I've also experienced it. It's so hard to distinguish where you start and where body shaming ends, because when you're big, it's part of who you are and it's part of what you deal with. When I go to shop or when I have been shopping, I have encountered instances where I've been body shamed. I'll go to get maybe a shirt or a pair of or some pants. Somebody will make a remark, right? They will throw a remark that we don't have your size, or your size will have to be custom made, or we'll have to get into the box of the store and look for a size for you, an applicable size for you. So yeah, when I have been shopping, I have faced that. The feeling is horrible. My fashion sense in a nutshell is comfortable. It's simple and comfortable. And this came from the point where I realized that I couldn't have too crazy a fashion sense, right? From when I was a child, I realized that my mom was trying to find clothes for me, and we will go to a store and somebody will make a funny remark at her. Not necessarily at me because I'm a child then, but at her, they will tell her, your kid is too big, or what are you feeding your kid, or have you thought of signing your kid up in a gym or something like that? Is he on a workout regimen? So from a young age, I remember that I had to pick that up. I had to pick it up in my mind and realize that you can't go for something too crazy, right? They might not have the size for you, or you cannot think you can wear with like everybody else. You have to look for something that works for you. Ideally, remarks have been made about my size and about my shape and about how I look, my weight, for a very long time. So it's happened in boutiques, it's happened in public means of transport, it's happened in school, it's happened in everyday interactions in a hotel. When I have been shopping, it's been said. The way I've dealt with it is by realizing that I need to have a very simple sense of style, and at the same time, I figured I needed to have at least one plug or so who know my size. So the moment they see me, they know that I'm coming for my set of clothes, different from everybody else. I pre-order my clothes, right? I can't walk into a boutique and be like, get me that shirt or get me those pants. So I've learned how to live with it in a sense to avoid all the shaming that I have had in the past. The least place I thought that I would experience body shaming, and this might be cliche, but it's in church. I have been brought up in church. My whole life I've been a church boy. I love church. I love the idea of religion, but more so I love the idea where I'm at right now in my process, in my healing journey, in my journey to discover myself. I love the idea of spiritualism more than religion. And I remember where that epiphany came from was going to church, where you expect to be accepted in a sense, right? You expect everybody to like you, or everybody to love you, or everybody to be welcoming of you. But it's also a place where you're facing body shaming, right? It goes so bad because in church they're doing it in a very holy sense. If I can use that words in air quotes, in a very holy sense, they won't say it straight to your face, or they won't be rude with it or be abusive with it. They'll be condescending with it. They'll be patronizing with it. You'll find that tasks in the church that require more energy are given to you automatically, right? Which I'm not complaining because it's in service, right? But I remember one instance where I have been, or maybe one or two instances where I've been called fat in church, or where I have been shamed in church. So that's the one place that I didn't expect it though, but it happened though. I think to tie this all together, it's basically what I've been saying. It's when you're my size, you learn to live with it because it happens constantly. It's not something that you'll go a week or a month or a year and it's not happened. It's so common that it might have happened today and I didn't really notice it because I didn't think too much into it. Things got really bad for me they got really dark for me. Depression has been real for me. Feeling anxious constantly is real for me. Being paranoid is real for me. Obsessing about how I look or how I am treated or how I interact with people is real for me. So before I go to my turning point, before I go to a point where I could say that I had fully healed from it, which I don't know if I can really say. I remember, I think I was 18. I think I just left high school, and I was looking into where I would go to campus. I was actually 18, and that was in 2015. So I remember wondering where I would go to campus, and I looked, and finally that's when I landed to multimedia to do journalism and mass comm. And I remember I loved everything about it. I loved journalism. I love the ability to tell a story. I love the idea that there are two sides to a story. I love that it's a creative space where you can mold something from nothing. So I loved my years in campus. But after campus, I sank into a place where I started using drugs. Before then, I was a casual drinker, a casual smoker. So it was very casual for me. But the moment when I left campus and I was not around my friends, the support system that I had built around me that loved me for me, people that I was used to interacting with on a daily basis, now I see them maybe once in a year. When that support system around me left, in a sense, it left me in a metaphorical kind of wilderness where I was trying to figure myself out. So I sank into a very dark place where I started using drugs very heavily. I sank into a very dark place where the one thing that was a light for me was my blogging. That's why I figured that I could start blogging. When it got really dark for me and I was thinking, contemplating suicide, I was trying so hard to get people to hear me. I was trying so hard to get the help that I needed because I recognized that I needed help. I was not getting it. So I remember I was Googling and trying to find a way that I could get the help I needed. And I remember one Google search telling me about journaling. But I did not want to write stuff down on pen and paper. I had done that and I felt like it was not helping because I've written all my life, by the way. Before I could start blogging, I've written even fictional works. I've written a book that is fictional. So I had written it down and my mom had printed it for me. So the turning point for me came when I did my first blog. I stumbled upon WordPress and I did my first blog. It took such a weight off me. Very few words. I remember today that my blog is, I think, 3 paragraphs long. And I remember when I did it, I saw the adrenaline. I don't remember what that drug is called in the mind. But I remember being so high of the idea that I had done it. The dopamine rush was so intense. I remember being so high of the idea that I had done it that I wanted to do it again and again and again and again. But I won't say that it was smooth sailing. I remember I did my first blog, then my second, and then I was arrested by my third. I remember because I had gotten to a point where instead of using, now I was selling drugs so that I could get some money. So I did my third blog and I got arrested. And I remember the turning point came for me when I got out of the cell. And I was like, nah, it cannot be this bad. You cannot be looking for somebody to affirm you or somebody to pick you up. Yeah, that you get to a cell. So I realized that I had to pick myself up, and that's where the turning point came for me. The events leading to the arrest were very funny. As I've mentioned, I was in a very dark place, right? I was using drugs. I did not have any support system. I remember I told my mom that I told her that I needed money, and her sentiments were, which is very right though, bro. I do not even hold it against her. Her sentiments were, you're done with high school. You're done with campus. It's time you get your own money. She had seen me sink into this very dark place. She knew that I was using drugs. It was very out in the open. I was not hiding it. And I remember that she had tried to get help for me, but I was not taking it. So I remember she She told me it's either A or B. It's either you get your job and you get your own money, or you get out of my house. So I remember, instead of using, I got to a point where I was like, now because she's not giving me this money, the easiest way to get my access to my drugs is by selling it. So I started selling, I don't know if I can say this on here, but I started selling weed. And my idea of selling weed was born of my plug, the guy who I used to buy it from. We were very close. And so he told me, hey Jay, check it. I'll give you a stipend. I'll give you some weed you can smoke, but just sell this weed for me. I remember I did it for, I think, 4 months, 5 months. Then he sold me out, bro. Yeah, he sold me out. I remember I was the normal spot that I was selling his weed at. I remember some police coming to me, and I remember the next thing I remember was I was in cuffs. The one thing they kept repeating and saying to me was, you need to be careful. They were saying it in Swahili, but I'll say it in English, saying you need to be careful about all of the people you hang around. The guy that you're constantly hanging around is a guy who's hold you out. Now, to get to the point where now I was arrested and I went to court. I remember my defense was that I was a first-time offender. And I remember my other defense was that I had just finished campus and I was trying to find my feet. I did not have a job. Yeah, it went on for a whole year, bro. It's a court case that went on for a whole year. It's something that I would not wish on anybody having a court case. It's not even on my worst enemy. It's draining. But at the same time, I think that's where I started realizing who I was, what I was capable of, how strong my mentality was, who my friends were, what I was looking forward to. And that's when I started getting into the flow of blogging. It was able to ease my mind of the idea that I had a pending court case and I could go to jail. It was also a point of healing for me where my body shaming was concerned. So after my arrest, I think, and after the whole court case, and it was thrown out and I was acquitted, that's where my whole turnaround came from. I realized that I was called for so much more. There's so much more that I wanted to achieve. There's so much more I was expectant of where life was concerned. So I realized for me to be able to appreciate life, I needed to first forgive myself for all the hurt that I was holding on to. Forgive myself from all the hurt I had allowed to get to me. The second thing I needed to do was to be in a position to forgive other people. The people who had offended me in the past. People who had made me feel some type of way in the past. I needed to also do that. And I also needed to get to the point where I needed to love me more. So I started dressing in a better sense. I started interacting with people who I felt were much better than me or were on the same journey as me. So, and people who were able to see past me, past the physical sense of me, and see my soul and see my heart, see my humor, see my mind, see all these other things that we crave for people to see. You know, when you're not superficial, you crave people to be able to see the inner you. And yeah, so I aligned myself with people who were able to see the me, who is me. That's where I could claim that I am at right now. There are spaces that helped me, and there are spaces that did not. I wouldn't say there are official spaces set up in Kenya for people my size. And forgive me and correct me if I'm wrong where that is concerned. But I have done my research. I do not know actual spaces that are for plus-size people, plus-size men in Kenya. I know that the support system around me right now is the realest that I've had in a very long time. I know that the friends I have right now as a man, my boys are the closest people I have to family that isn't family. So I've not interacted with fellow plus-size men. So there are spaces that you have to really build in a sense, because I have not found any official spaces. My family right now, the family that I'm building right now, I have a girlfriend, a very lovely girlfriend. She's picked me from the dust where my body is concerned, and she's able to love me for me. My friends, my boys who have also loved me for me. So yeah, I think that's a space as a man in Kenya. That's the space that I have to be able to receive the love that I need, and to be able to also get the support that I need. And I think it's fair to also mention here that what I've realized as with my weight and with my size and with all the body shaping that I've been through is that you need to be also get to the point where you're able to ask yourself if you're okay with the way you look. People will body shame you. I've interacted with people who have been body shamed in the past and they hate on themselves. They don't like the way they look. The relationship between themselves and their body is broken. So anytime somebody will body shame them, instead of taking it in as with a pinch of salt or laugh about it or laugh with the people who are body shaming you, you'll get to a point where it gets you to a very dark place. So you need to ask yourself, do you love yourself? Do you love the way you look? And if you don't, then you are able to surround yourself with friends and a community that will tell you, if you don't, you know what you need to do. You know, you need to start eating right. You know, you need to hit the gym, which are things that I'm actively also pursuing. I have signed up to a gym right now. I'm looking to actively transform my body image to a point where I'm able to love myself even deeper and love myself even harder. It's not easy, but it's doable. So I'm very excited because it's something that I just signed up to. It's not something that I've been doing. It was part of my New Year's resolutions. So I'm looking forward to seeing if I can have the spaces that would actually support me through this journey, through this whole space of self-discovery and transformative body image. You need to surround yourself with people who love you and genuinely love you. They're not people who you leave the table and they'll start discussing you. You need to find your tribe or find your people that will love you genuinely without expecting anything or without secretly hating you. The second thing you need to also do is you need to be in a position where you can love yourself more. It's before you give love, you must be in a position to receive love. And receiving love starts from a very personal point. You need to be very introspective. You need to look inward and remind yourself that despite the body shaming that you're going through right now, that you love yourself. Otherwise, you'll sink into a very dark place, as I've mentioned. Surround yourself with the right people. Love yourself. You are equally deserving of love. You're equally deserving of the affection. You're equally deserving of people hearing your opinion. You are an actual person. You're not just somebody who should sit in the shadows or should sit locked up in their house forever. And go out, experience life, realize that life is meant to be lived. And the moment you get to that point, you realize that your body is more of a vessel. It's not really who you are. You are your thoughts. You are your heart. You're your love. You're your emotions. You're your opinions in a sense. You're not how you look.
Catch more African stories in the next episode of Legally Clueless. That was such a powerful, powerful story by Jay. I truly appreciate him being vulnerable and open with us on this podcast and just really going there with us, especially because we don't often hear the perspective of African men navigating body shaming. Earlier, I was telling you about Banter, and I've said this on the podcast before. When we think of Banter, we think about like online people like teasing each other, or even like groups of men. I've never understood. There are quite a few men friend groups who tease each other. And I don't know, it's a way of showing they care, I think. I don't know. But sometimes it gets really rough and really mean. And I'm just like, hey, what's happening here? You see it in that sense. You see it even in families. We'll call it banter, or we're just joking when we're making statements about how somebody looks, etc. But when you actually think about it, words can really affect someone, and we need to be more aware of that. In fact, I'm more of the opinion that instead of asking people to have a thick skin, how's about we try and be a bit more responsible and kinder and softer with how we speak to others? That could go a super long way instead of telling somebody to have a thick skin. You know what I mean? I've always found banter to be quite problematic. I really, Anyway, I loved having Jay's story on this podcast, on this episode. I would love to hear your thoughts about it on whichever podcast platform you're streaming this on. Just drop a comment. Let's hear what your thoughts are when it comes to body shaming, and specifically from the African male perspective. Are there safe spaces? Have you had conversations like these before? I'd really love to hear more. This has really piqued my interest. Remember that you can catch us on Trace FM every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 1 p.m. and 11 p.m. That's Monday and Wednesday, and Fridays we're there at 1 p.m. And head over to our Instagram. There is a link to it in the show notes so that you can learn more about the partnership we have with Mirazi this month to make things like pap smears, breast and pelvic ultrasounds, consultations with GPs and with gynecologists, super subsidized cost-wise for you this March, and how we as Legally Clueless Africa can sponsor your consultation with a gynecologist. That's happening on our Instagram page. Thank you so much for listening to the episode to the very end. I am wishing you nothing but love, love, love upon love, love for yourself, transformative love that can fuel you towards healing. And yeah, I'm just giving you tons of hugs. I think I'm giving it to you because I kind of need it right now. But like, if I need it, I'm pretty sure there's somebody else out there who needs it as well. So love and hugs from me. That's it for this episode of Legally Clueless. You can share this podcast with your friends. You can keep it for yourself. I'm not judging. Just make sure you're here next week for the next episode.